From spearfishing near a barracuda, to dancing beside a loose sewer grate, to attempting a whole egg challenge, these influencers chased quick views with reckless stunts. But instead of going viral, their cameras captured something else, the final moments of their lives. It was August 19, 2019, off the coast of Florida, USA. The morning was clear, with small rental boats scattered near the shallow reef where weekend divers and hobby spearfishers prepared their gear. The water stayed calm enough for short dives, and visibility below the surface was about 15 feet. One of the divers that day was 23-year-old Liam Archer, a small Facebook creator with just over 2,000 followers. Most of his videos were simple breath-hold dives and beginner spearfishing clips, but friends said he'd been chasing better shots all summer. Longer dives, closer angles, and footage that looked more extreme. Liam worked part-time at a sporting goods store, where co-workers said he often talked about turning his channel into a full-time job. He had recently begun copying techniques from larger creators, despite not having proper training. For this trip, he brought a basic wrist-mounted action camera and a light spear gun he'd bought online, and his group said he preferred diving without a snorkel because he thought it made the videos look cleaner. Recovered footage from Liam's own camera shows him entering the water and easing down along the reef's edge. A friend on the boat later said Liam planned to get a clear front-angle strike on a larger fish for his next upload. Another diver stayed near the surface and watched him swim forward, scanning the rocks and coral formations as he searched for a target. About a minute into his dive, Liam's camera captured a barracuda gliding along the reef line. The footage showed it was a large, roughly 4-foot fish, moving slowly along the edge of the coral. He angled downward and aimed the spear gun at them. Investigators later said the recovered footage showed that Liam fired a shot, but instead of hitting the head, it struck the fish in the midsection. A mid-body strike is known to trigger a defensive reaction in barracudas. The sudden injury causes them to thrash violently and turn toward the source of the threat. The camera footage showed the barracuda whip around in a violent defensive burst, and during the thrashing turn, it clipped the side of Liam's head. The camera shook violently, recording flashes of scales, silt, and Liam's hand losing grip on the spear gun. With only a single breath and no snorkel to regain orientation, he drifted downward instead of rising. Because Liam had separated from his group to film alone along the reef edge, no one saw the struggle directly. His friends were several yards away in shallower water. They later told officials they expected him to surface within his usual breath-hold time. When he didn't, they looked out toward the reef and noticed thin streaks of red rising to the surface. One friend said that was the first sign that something was wrong. The group swam toward the area and scanned the surface, but Liam never came up. One friend dove down and saw only a cloud of stirred sand. Moments later, another diver spotted Liam deeper along the slope of the reef, motionless and drifting. They pulled him upward and brought him alongside the boat. According to witnesses, he showed no signs of breathing when they reached the surface. His friends lifted him onto the deck and immediately called emergency services, while one of them began CPR. They continued chest compressions until rescue crews arrived at the dock a short time later. Officials later reviewed the recovered footage alongside witness statements. They confirmed the full sequence: the midsection strike, the barracuda's defensive turn, the blow to Liam's head, and the loss of orientation that kept him from resurfacing. The medical examiner listed his death as drowning, with head trauma from the bite contributing to his inability to ascend. Wildlife officers repeated warnings about spearfishing large predatory fish without proper training, especially when attempting close-range footage alone. It was May 4th, 2018. Along a quiet desert road in Nevada, USA. Late afternoon heat hung over the pavement, and only a few cars passed through the area. The open stretch was a common spot for local riders, because the road looked empty on camera. One of the riders who often used that stretch of road was 19-year-old Evan Cruz, a community college student and part-time delivery rider who posted small moto clips to an audience of about 3,800 followers. He spent most evenings in his driveway, adjusting parts on his bike, trying to make each upload look more polished. According to his friends, Evan had been talking for days about a stunt he believed would finally make him go viral. That day, his friends drove behind him in a small sedan, recording his ride from their phones. They chose a long, quiet highway outside town, a spot the group had used before. Shortly after 5 p.m., Evan positioned himself on the road while his friends set up in the trailing car. Their phone footage starts with Evan accelerating steadily along the straightaway. A few seconds in, Evan lifted both hands off the handlebars to perform the stunt he had planned. The friend's recording shows him extending his arms out, trying to keep his balance as the motorcycle continued forward. At first, the bike held straight, then the wobble started. According to the friend's footage, the front wheel made a small left-right shake, then another one, sharper. Light motorcycles commonly lose stability when the handlebars aren't controlled, especially at higher speeds. Evan reached forward to grab the bars again, but the video shows him missing the grips on the first attempt. The wobble intensified, and the bike drifted toward the shoulder. In the recording, one friend shouted Evan's name just as the front wheel twisted sharply. The motorcycle veered sideways, throwing Evan forward onto the pavement. The phone camera captured him hitting the ground and rolling once before stopping. His friends braked hard and ran toward him, with one staying back to alert oncoming cars. They later said Evan was unresponsive the moment they reached him. One friend called 911, gave the mile marker, and followed the dispatcher's instructions to keep the area clear. A patrol unit arrived within minutes, checked the roadway, and directed the group aside. EMS followed shortly after and completed a rapid assessment as passing drivers slowed along the shoulder. Later that evening, officials confirmed that Evan Cruz died from severe head and neck trauma caused by the high-speed impact with the pavement. Investigators reviewed the friend's recordings to understand the crash mechanics and determined that the combination of speed, loss of handlebar control, and delayed correction made the fall unavoidable once the wobble began. His friends deleted the clip from social media, and his channel was later taken offline at his family's request. It was November 7, 2019, in a small second-floor apartment in New South Wales, Australia. The weather outside was mild, and most of the neighboring units were quiet for the weekend. Inside, a young content creator prepared a setup she hoped would finally boost her small YouTube channel. The creator was 23-year-old Mallory Vance, a retail assistant who filmed challenge videos during her days off. Her channel had fewer than 4,000 subscribers, and friends said she often pressured herself to step it up whenever her views slowed. For several weeks, she had been telling people at work that she needed a bigger stunt to keep her uploads competitive. Mallory liked the idea of hosting challenges herself. She was loud, energetic, and often insisted she wasn't afraid to try anything once. Two friends, Dylan and Sarah, came over that evening to help her film. They usually assisted behind the camera or joined in simple taste tests. This time, however, Mallory proposed something she called a full bottle run, an alcohol chug challenge she had seen circulating on small creator pages. She insisted it would be easy, telling her friends that other influencers had done worse. Both hesitated, but Mallory brushed them off and said the stunt would help her channel stand out. By early evening, they set a tripod and two small lights in front of the dining table. Mallory placed a large bottle of high-proof spirits at the center, insisting it stay sealed until the camera was rolling. Once the recording started, she introduced the challenge with enthusiasm while her friends stood off-screen, counting loudly as she lifted the bottle. Footage showed her drinking in long stretches, lowering the bottle only briefly before taking another extended pull. Dylan's nervous voice can be heard warning her not to overdo it, but she brushed him off. Near the 30-second mark, the recording captured her shoulders swaying as she struggled to speak. She tried lifting the bottle again, but her grip loosened, and it tipped over, rolling toward the edge of the table. Moments later, her posture shifted sharply. She leaned back, then forward, and slid sideways out of the chair, hitting the floor with a dull thud captured on the lower edge of the frame. Her friends reacted immediately, Dylan asking if she was joking, Sarah urging him to check her breathing. When Mallory did not respond, they attempted to lift her shoulders, realized she was limp. They called NS Dow's emergency services. Emergency responders arrived within minutes and found Mallory unresponsive on the living room floor with the bottle beside her. Officials later confirmed she died from acute alcohol poisoning and respiratory suppression after consuming a large amount of high-proof liquor in a short period. Investigators reviewed the full recording, which showed the rapid intake, the loss of coordination, and the moment she collapsed. Evidence that the stunt meant for views turned fatal almost immediately. In response, authorities issued an advisory warning the public about extreme consumption challenges and urged creators to avoid filming high-risk drinking stunts. It was September 14, 2023, in Rajasthan, India, on a warm weekday afternoon, along a crowded commuter line. Trains passed every few minutes, and the platforms were packed with workers heading home. students changing lines, and vendors weaving through the crowds while staff watched for anyone drifting too close to the tracks. Among the people waiting near the edge that day was 24-year-old Ravi Shankar, not to board a train, but to record a stunt. Ravi worked part-time at a small electronics shop and spent most of his free hours filming short challenge clips for social media. With just under 3,000 followers, he was known for near-miss videos where he stood close to fast-moving vehicles, usually shot after work or on weekends. Friends said he had grown frustrated with low engagement on recent uploads and wanted something closer and more dramatic. Rail staff later confirmed they had warned him several times to stop filming near the tracks, but he kept returning to the same stretch of platform, convinced he needed a single perfect shot to boost his page. Ravi arrived that afternoon with a small action camera, a tripod, and a portable mic. Witnesses saw him set the tripod at ground level a few feet from the rail, pointing the lens upward for a dramatic angle. He stepped into frame and adjusted his position several times. Footbridge pedestrians noticed him inching closer to the track, backing up by a few inches each time he checked the camera screen. The pattern was familiar, Ravi testing the boundary for effect. Footage later recovered from the camera showed him looking over his shoulder twice, confirming a train was approaching. He then turned his back to the tracks, facing the camera directly. The horn sounded in the distance, faint but audible. Ravi took a half step toward the rail, something he had done in earlier videos when he wanted the train to pass as close as possible behind him. Two commuters on the nearby footbridge immediately recognized the danger. They shouted warnings down toward Ravi, trying to get his attention. According to their later statements, he didn't turn around. He stayed locked on the camera, making small adjustments to his stance. The train, moving at a moderate but steady speed, closed the distance quickly. The camera captured everything. In the final seconds of the recording, a fast blur of metal filled the frame. Ravi misjudged the clearance of that type of commuter coach, specifically the protruding side railing near the front. As the first coach passed, the railing struck him across the back. The impact threw him several yards across the gravel shoulder. The camera toppled sideways, continuing to record the motion of the ground, the roar of the train, and people shouting from the platform above. Bystanders rushed toward the edge but held back until the last coach passed. Platform workers moved in first, waving people away from the tracks and radioing for emergency assistance. Within minutes, emergency personnel reached the platform, secured the area, and retrieved the still recording camera before shutting it off. Officials determined that Ravi died from massive blunt force trauma to the head and chest at the moment of impact. In response, rail authorities expanded safety measures across the line. Clearer warning signs were installed along every platform edge. Additional fencing was added to high-risk areas, and patrol teams were assigned during peak hours to stop people from filming near moving trains. It was April 16, 2023, in Manila, Philippines, during a warm late afternoon when people gathered along the Bayside area for the usual sunset rush. The sidewalks were crowded with tourists, students, and office workers passing through, and nearby shop cameras recorded the constant flow of foot traffic along the narrow drainage walkway beside the main road. Among the people filming that day was 20-year-old Alyssa Vergara, a TikTok creator with about 3,800 followers who posted short dance clips several times a week. Friends said she preferred filming in busy public places because she liked having an audience. People watching her made the videos feel more alive, and she believed it helped her clips perform better. She often picked spots where crowds naturally gathered, even if the areas weren't ideal for dancing. That afternoon, she and two friends went out to record another routine, and the drainage walkway facing the sunset seemed like the perfect location for a quick video. They stopped at a narrow strip of walkway that ran beside a drainage line. A large metal plate covered part of the sewer opening. Locals later told officials that this plate didn't sit tightly and sometimes tilted when people stepped on it. Several teenagers had been warned about it before. Alyssa and her friends didn't know the history. They simply saw an open area where she could dance. Her friends held their phones a few feet back while Alyssa practiced the routine. She adjusted her footing several times, moving close to the metal cover to get the framing they wanted. When they were ready, they started recording. At first, the routine looked normal. Alyssa stayed near the center of the walkway, stepping side to side. Later, investigators reviewing the shop's CCTV footage noticed something else, the way she shifted backward a little at a time, without checking where her feet were landing. Her friend's recording also showed her drifting closer to the plate. Alyssa stepped back and planted her right foot on the edge of the metal cover. The plate tilted as soon as her weight pressed onto it. CCTV footage showed the opposite side lifting up, creating a gap beneath her. There was no hesitation and no chance to recover. She dropped straight through the opening. The chamber below was roughly 10 feet deep with a concrete base. People nearby reported hearing a heavy impact almost instantly after she disappeared from view. Her friends ran to the opening and tried to see inside, but could not reach her. A passerby used a storefront phone to call emergency services, while another person flagged down a patrol unit driving through the area. Fire crews arrived within minutes. Responders removed the loose cover fully, illuminated the chamber, and lowered a rescuer using a short harness system. Alyssa was found unresponsive with significant head trauma, consistent with a fall onto a hard surface. She was lifted out and transferred to the sidewalk, while police established a boundary around the walkway. Later that evening, medical examiners confirmed she died from severe head trauma caused by striking the concrete base of the chamber. Her phone recording captured only the first split second of the drop before the video cut out. City workers reinforced the walkway that night, installing a locked cover and adding a temporary barrier until a full inspection could be scheduled. A public advisory followed, reminding residents and content creators to avoid filming on or near drainage systems, unfinished walkways, or unstable ground. It was February 2nd, 2020, in Ohio, USA. The night was quiet in a residential neighborhood outside Columbus. Most houses along the street were dim, and only a few windows showed any movement. Inside one home, the hallways were calm, and the bedrooms were lit only by small desk lamps. 21-year-old Mason Holt lived in one of those rooms. He worked part-time at a grocery store and attended community college, spending most evenings filming short mukbang-style challenge videos. His parents described him as quiet and routine-driven, someone who preferred staying in his room where he could film without interruptions. His page had about 2,700 followers, and he recorded most clips alone using a small tripod and his phone, retaking shots until he felt they looked right. That night, he planned to stream a whole boiled egg challenge, a trend circulating on short-form platforms where creators forced an entire egg past their teeth in a single motion. Several versions of the challenge had gone viral with dramatic reactions, and Mason hoped his attempt might gain attention. The camera was already rolling when he returned with a small plate from the kitchen. On stream, he explained that he'd boiled a fresh egg for authenticity, holding it up to show it was still warm. Mason positioned himself on the edge of his bed, leaned forward, and attempted the challenge. The recording showed him pressing the egg against his teeth, pausing once, then forcing it inward with a quick push. It disappeared past his teeth faster than he seemed to expect. For a few seconds, he held still with his hands braced on his knees. Viewers later said they thought he was joking or trying to create suspense. Then Mason's posture changed, his shoulders tightened, and he leaned forward sharply as though trying to cough. No sound came out. He raised one hand toward his throat and pushed himself halfway out of his chair before collapsing to the side, out of frame. The phone continued streaming. For nearly a minute, the viewers saw only the edge of Mason's desk and the corner of his arm on the floor. The chat filled with messages asking if he was joking, then shifted to alarm when he didn't move. Some viewers insisted someone call for help, but Mason was alone, and no one else in the house had seen the stream. The video stayed live until the battery drained. Mason's parents returned home later that night. When he didn't answer their knocks, they opened his bedroom door and found him unresponsive on the floor beside the desk. According to the incident report, they attempted CPR while calling 911. Dispatch instructed them to continue chest compressions until responders arrived. Paramedics reached the house within minutes. They assessed Mason where he was found, noting a complete airway blockage. Attempts to clear his airway were not successful. Officials later confirmed that Mason Holt died from a full obstruction caused by the whole boiled egg, which had become lodged beyond reach and blocked airflow entirely. They reviewed the archived version of the stream, which clearly showed the moment the egg slipped past Mason's teeth and the immediate signs of choking that followed. The family removed his recording setup, and the channel was quietly taken offline. Local officials issued a short reminder about the risks of unsupervised challenge videos, another example of how a stunt meant to entertain a small audience had ended in a preventable death, recorded in real time by Mason himself. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button for more videos.